on Newswatch.
Athens city officials again hear complaints about plans for an apartment building, but don't change their support of the project.
A Meigs County man gets ready to open a distillery that uses only local ingredients.
And in sports, it's Ohio and Kent State at the Convocation Center tonight.
Broadcasting live from WOUB TV in Athens. This is Newswatch.
Athens County Historical Society Director Roose is trying a new strategy in an effort to save a historic Athens building. Good evening, everyone. I'm Graylyn Roose.
And I'm Andrew Fowler. Lou spoke out today at a meeting of the City Planning Commission, which last week approved construction of an apartment building on Stimson Avenue where Bellavino is located. At the meeting, Luce asked Athens businessman Rick Wasserman that he act as a humanitarian, give up the property, and let it be sold to someone who will keep up the historic structure. But Wasserman was having none of it and indicated he's going ahead with his plans to tear down the building. He also said he resented having to attend another planning commission meeting to defend himself. Luce says he's concerned about zoning and the problems this could cause for the city.
There's a serious violation of code, in my opinion. I am convinced that if we go forward with what was decided last week, it just creates chaos of our code in this entire city. Our code, in my opinion, essentially means nothing if we can twist it and distort it to mean anything we want it to mean.
Luce's arguments appear to be falling on deaf ears. The law director has already said he will fight any potential lawsuit.
The sheriff's final report on the freeing of dozens of exotic animals near Zanesville says the owner planned the action. The report says Terry Thompson told a caretaker he had a plan the night before to set the animals loose. Thompson was troubled over caring for his animals and about being confined to his property after spending a year in prison on a gun conviction. He also was upset that his wife was away. Thompson fatally shot himself after releasing the animals. Authorities have recovered 4 guns that were stolen from a veterans museum in Parkersburg. A resident found the guns in a guitar case laying alongside the road. About $10,000 worth of guns, knives, uniforms, and other items were stolen in a December break-in at the Veterans Museum of the Mid-Ohio Valley. An investigation is continuing.
West Virginia and Marshall universities are turning to alternative funding sources for research. A new report says state funding for research universities in West Virginia has dropped from over $10,000 per student in 2002 to just over $7,000 in 2010. Nationwide, the report says state funding for research universities fell by 10% during the same period.
Welcome to the Newswatch Weather Center. I'm Colleen O'Maro. Right now in Athens, we're at 31 degrees with a slight wind coming from the west at 5 miles per hour. The humidity is at 43%, so that's why we haven't really seen much precipitation today yet. Around our region, we're at 29 in Lancaster, 29 in Columbus, 31 in Portsmouth, 31 in Huntington as well, 30 in Ripley, and 26 in Steubenville. Into tonight, we're going to have a low of 23 degrees, increasing clouds as we're preparing for that precipitation. And we are going to be seeing some snow moving into tonight as our wind is really going to remain the same. So, Andrew and Graylyn, you don't need to worry about wind chill tonight, but that snow will be moving in and remaining throughout tomorrow.
Thanks, Colleen.
Work will begin this spring to upgrade Township Road 209 to a state route in Morgan County. A construction company will be working on the project. The Ohio Department of Transportation says crews will be realigning more than a half-mile of road. ODOT says the new state route 607 will make the area more attractive for economic development.
A Parkersburg potato chip maker will soon be producing the snack food again. Mr. B Potato Chip Company announced the news on the company's Facebook page this morning. The company filed for bankruptcy protection in November and had been approved to accept financing for raw materials last month. Mr. B is waiting on some final paperwork before they can enter the market again. The Eat Local movement is gaining popularity in Southeast Ohio, with businesses relying on local ingredients to produce their food. As WOUB's Taylor Mirfendereski found out, that movement is finding favor in the spirits world, too.
I had run my stills yesterday.
For nearly 30 years, Kelly Sauber has worked with others to brew or distill alcohol. His love for the industry is intoxicating, so intoxicating that he's decided to distill alone.
This is what I want to do. I left my job with Marietta Brewing Company in October of 2010 and actually began the process full-time of going through the licensing with the federals first.
In this old barn, the size of a two-car garage, Sauber and his girlfriend Deanna run the Dancing Tree Distillery in Shade, Ohio. Sauber is one of about a dozen distillers across the state, but his whiskey and vodka are different from what you'll find on store shelves. They're made with only local ingredients. From grape vodka and corn whiskey to vodka made from the pawpaw fruit, they're all ingredients located no more than 30 miles from his home.
The more you work with the people in your community, the more a part of the community you become. So the way we see it is, if we can help our friends and neighbors with another outlet for selling their product, they potentially become an outlet for us selling our product, and we all help each other.
It takes 2 to 3 weeks to make a batch of vodka. First, the ingredients are prepared, then they are fermented, and finally the liquid is distilled. At this point in the distillery process, the vodka that I'm about to try is in its purest form. It's 190 proof. It's strong now, but when the process is finished, it'll be watered down to 40%. If you are hoping to get some of Sauber's vodka, you'll have to wait a few months. The state does not allow distillers to sell their products directly to stores or restaurants. But at the end of March, a new law will allow Sauber to sell his alcohol from his distillery. Once his business is in full swing, Sauber says he could produce up to 200 bottles of vodka per week. At that point, his love for the industry may reach a whole new level of intoxication. For WOUB News, I'm Taylor Mirfendereski.
A new report says uncertainty over rules on prisoner transfers explains why a Texas parolee suspected in a Craigslist robbery scheme was mistakenly released from Ohio custody twice. Ohio's Adult Offender Supervision Council says Texas was clear that its warrants for Richard Beasley did not allow bonds, but the message was not so clear about when officers would come to get him. Authorities say they are planning to charge Beasley with killing 3 men and wounding a 4th between August and November. Ohio's food stamp program may be victim to several scam artists. State Auditor Dave Yost says a review by his office found more than 17,000 food stamp recipients since 2006 have sought more than 10 replacement debit cards for buying food. Yost says multiple card requests may suggest potential fraud. The presidential primary is more than 1 month away, but there is a shakeup in which candidate now claims the top spot with Ohio voters.
When we come back, we talk with a State House news columnist who will help us understand how the race is shaping up. And some popular websites are blacking themselves out today. Coming up on Newswatch. No surprise here, Joe Manchin is seeking re-election from U.S. Senator from West Virginia. He filed his candidacy petitions today for a full 6-year term. Manchin was elected in November 2010 to fill the unexpired term of the late Robert Byrd.
It's been just over a month since the last Republican presidential poll in Ohio, and there is a new frontrunner. Mitt Romney has jumped to the front of the pack in the state. Romney leads the race with 27%, followed by Rick Santorum with 18%.
With all due respect, the race is not going to be in South Carolina in November. The race is going to be in Ohio, in Missouri, in Pennsylvania, in Indiana, in North Carolina, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, Iowa, Florida, maybe a few others.
In third place is Newt Gingrich, who was at the top choice for Ohio voters in the December poll. Another Ohio poll shows just 51% of registered voters in the state say Barack Obama does not deserve a second term. We want to talk more now about the March 6th primary and have invited back an Ohio University professor to offer his insight. Tom Suddes, who is also a State House news columnist, joins us now in our studio. Thanks, Tom, for being here tonight.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So we're talking about the Republican primary. It's been pretty quiet in Ohio right now. When will we expect things to heat up for that?
I think things might get a little bit more hot, or more clear anyway, after the South Carolina primary. Indications are at this point that former Governor Romney may do quite well down there, in which case that would be a good lead into his Ohio operation on March 6th.
Okay. What's going on now behind the scenes as candidates get prepared for right now? What are they concerned? What are our Ohio voters, concerned about?
Well, that's difficult to say right now. I think, although obviously you can infer from what politicians say what they think is on the minds of the voters, and it obviously in Ohio the #1 concern right now is employment security. Do I have a job? Can I find a job? Can my son, daughter, friend, husband find a job? And I think the economy would have to be ranked #1 right now in terms of the concerns of the everyday Ohioan.
Okay. And since we're talking about the economy, we've seen things kind of at least stabilize, it seems, or get maybe even a little bit better. Do you think that's improving the chances for President Barack Obama in his reelection?
I think it does improve the president's prospects in the state as well as nationally. A lot of elections are decided on what used to be called a bread and butter basis. Am I going to have less on the table or more on the table if so-and-so either stays in the White House or gets to the White House? And I think if the president's, if the economy continues to at least progress, then he is better than not a favorite because he is an incumbent after all.
How important is Ohio to the national picture? Ohio's primary is taking place on the same date as a lot of other states' primaries.
Well, Ohio is kind of a test market state for all kinds of things, and in that respect, we're a really good proxy for what other states might or might not do. However, it's worth noting that Ohio, in the last 4 or 5 presidential elections, has tended to go in the primary phase with the winner. On the other hand, 4 years ago, then Senator Hillary Clinton actually won the Ohio primary, but of course the nominee in the end was then Senator Obama. So in general, Ohio is a good proxy for the nation, this as well as in November. But there are things that are hard to read ahead of time. The chemistry the voters have with a given candidate can make or break that candidate.
Do you see things changing? The primary isn't until March 6th, which is kind of late in the game. Do you see anything possibly changing in the Republican field?
Well, it's hard to say. I think we always have to be aware as residents of this country the possibility of some foreign policy concern. If some crisis were to emerge in which either the current administration either showed leadership and success or had difficulty facing it, that could upset not upset, it could change the dynamic of the campaign.
Okay, we just have a few more seconds, but are there any new rules or regulations for this primary?
Any new what?
Rules or regulations for this primary as opposed to years
I don't
past?
think it's a big difference. Again, keep in mind that only about 46% of the registered voters voted in the last primary, and in that case, neither party had an incumbent in the White House. So we'll have to see if it's going to be even as lively as that in terms of turnout and other developments.
Tom Suddes, thanks so much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here as always. Thank you.
Some popular websites are blacked out today to protest anti-piracy bills now in Congress. The participating websites will only be down today. Tommy Andres has more on the blackout.
For the rest of the day, Wikipedia will look like this. The online encyclopedia went black to protest anti-piracy legislation that is up for debate in Congress. 2 bills, known as SOPA and PIPA, target overseas sites, like the Pirate Bay, that allow users to share illegal downloads of movies, music, and other digital content.
These rogue sites are hurting American jobs, stealing American jobs, they're harming American consumers, and they have no business being on the internet.
The bills try to cut off access to the overseas sites by requiring U.S. search engines and other providers to withhold their services.
In the worst versions of the bill, Wikipedia would be defined as a search engine, and we would not be able to even link to something like the Pirate Bay, even in our encyclopedic description of what Pirate Bay is. I think that's a real problem. That raises really serious First Amendment issues.
Other websites are joining Wikipedia in protest, including blog Boing Boing. Google put a black bar over its logo in solidarity with the cause.
If you think of Facebook, if you think of Twitter, if you think of Google, and eBay, etc., people put things, users put things onto company sites. And companies can't control that. Well, they could by censorship. And that's what we want to avoid.
The White House admits online piracy is a problem, but has come out firmly against the bills, saying they limit freedom of expression. I'm Tommy Andres reporting.
President Obama says he's denying an application for an oil pipeline because a GOP mandated deadline didn't allow time for a full review. The $7 billion pipeline would carry oil from northern Alberta in Canada down to Texas's Gulf Coast. Republicans tried to force Obama to make a final decision on the project by passing a law late last year that imposed a 60-day deadline. White House spokesman Jay Carney stopped short of saying a decision had been made.
When, in the case of Keystone, a pipeline, concerns were raised about the environmental impacts on the air and water quality in Nebraska by, among others, the governor of Nebraska, a Republican, a decision was made that an alternate route be sought. and that therefore the process had to be delayed so that an adequate review could be undertaken following the same standards that have always been in place, that were in place in the beginning of this process for this particular pipeline, and that have been in place for these kinds of projects for many years.
House Speaker John Boehner says the president is breaking his promise to create jobs by rejecting the plan. And on Wall Street, stocks today are closed at their highest level since July as the International Monetary Fund sought to help out countries that were hit by the European debt crisis.
Up next, I'll be talking about the snow we'll be seeing across the state, rising temperatures for next week, and make sure you stay tuned for my extended forecast. Welcome back to the Newswatch Weather Center. I'm Colleen O'Maro. Right now in Athens, we're at 31 degrees, so just a little bit above freezing. We have a slight wind coming from the west at 5 miles per hour. Looking at our region, in Columbus we're at 29 degrees, as well as Lancaster, and in Zanesville. We're 31 in Athens and Parkersburg, and 30 in Ripley. By tonight here in Athens, our low is going to be 23 degrees with increasing clouds, and by the early morning we're going to be seeing some snow. By 9 p.m. tonight, we're going to be at 27 degrees. By midnight, we're going to just decrease a little bit by 26, still those clouds lingering around. And by the time we hit 3 a.m., we're going to be at 24 degrees, and that rain is going to, that snow is going to start coming in. As you can see, we have a low pressure system over us right now, which is why we're seeing precipitation. If you look out in the west, you see this low pressure system and a high pressure system, which is causing lots of turbulence out west with flood warnings and snow. By 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, that snow is going to be here, and it's going to be lingering around. We're going to be at 31, so if you're up bright and early, make sure you bundle up. By noon, we're going to be at 37 degrees, so increasing a lot. And by 3 p.m., we're going to be at 39. That snow still remaining throughout the whole entire day. Now moving into tomorrow, we still have that low pressure system above us, but we have a high pressure system coming in for Friday. And by Saturday, we're having the west low pressure system come back in, which will be causing rain for us. Tomorrow, we're going to be at 35 in Lancaster, 34 in Columbus, 33 in Ashland and Huntington, and 36 in Ripley. Looking at a history, today we had a high of 32 degrees. The average high for this time of year is 42, and in 1929 they set a record high of 72 degrees. And looking at our lows, today we had a low of 22 degrees. The average low for this day is 24 degrees, and the record was set in 1944 at negative 15 degrees, so very chilly. Our sun rose at 7:44 today, and it set just a little bit before our show at 5:32. Now looking throughout the week, tomorrow, like I said, we're going to be seeing all of that snow. By Friday, we're going to be clear, and we're going to have a high of 32, so still a little bit chilly. Moving into the weekend, there is a chance for some rain, but really nothing to worry about. And as we go into next week, we're going to be getting into some higher temperatures. By Tuesday, we'll be at a high of 55.
So there's at least some good news coming up, and I definitely can say that I'm glad we're not close to that negative 15% set for years. Yeah.
That would be terrible.
High will just back and forth. Snow today, 55 next week.
Right.
And this season, it sounds like there's an interesting team at the top.
Yeah, the most successful Ohio sports team can be found in the water.
Coming up on Newswatch, I'm Blake Brody, live from the Convocation Center. I'll bring you a preview of tonight's matchup, Ohio versus Kent State. Two teams going in opposite directions. We'll see if Ohio can even up their record in the MAC tonight, right after this.
The Ohio basketball team is in need of a win and fast. And tonight, the Green and White have an opportunity to get back in the win column as they take on the Kent State Golden Flashes. Ohio, after starting the season 12-1, has lost 3 out of their last 4 games, including 2 conference losses. As for the opposition, they have won 4 out of 5 coming into this game. And we are now going to go live to the Convocation Center to talk with WOUB's Blake Brody. Blake, obviously a tough test for Ohio. What can the Bobcats expect out of this Kent State team?
Yeah, Nick, you see we're about a little bit over an hour before tip time. You see both teams taking some practice shots right behind me, but you're absolutely right. Kent State, a very hot team coming into tonight's game. They're winners of 4 of their last 5 games. They're a very athletic team. This is a tough team, a very physical team, a team that does a lot of dirty work on the glass, on the boards. They have 4 different guys averaging double-digit figures in scoring, but they're led by Justin Green. You see him on your screen right there. He's averaging 13 points a game, 6 rebounds. But in MAC play, you can multiply those numbers, 20 points and 10 boards during conference play. He's 6'10". He's a very big presence down low. It's going to be a big challenge for Ohio, especially coming off a bad performance against Akron's big guy, Zeke Marshall, in which 4 different Ohio Bobcats fouled out, 3 of them were guarding Marshall. I talked with Coach yesterday about how they're going to go about guarding Justin Green tonight. He said not to expect just one guy. It'll be a combination of guys guarding him
We're going to rotate different bodies on him, to be honest with you. We're not going to make it just one guy's responsibility. We're going to put different bodies on him. We're going to try to give him, you know, potentially different looks, and, you know, we'll see how it turns out.
For Ohio, it might be as simple as just shooting the ball better. They're in this little 4-game slide where Ohio's lost 3 of 4. They have been ice cold, especially from three-point land. They've shot only 17 of their last 89 that have fallen from three-point range. That's 19%, folks. That's not going to get it done. They're only shooting 35% from two-point land, well below their season average of 43% this season. Other than three-point shooting, Ohio just needs to get that toughness, that same toughness and ferocity that they played against Buffalo, which made him so successful last week. Expect him at home to get that done. Coach Gross says for fans to leave happy tonight, Ohio must do these things to be victorious.
We have to find a way to impact the game defensively, whether that's field goal percentage D or turnovers. It'd be great if it's both. But we've got to at least be able to impact it in one of those 2 areas. And then they're 9th in the country forcing turnovers. So the biggest concern I have on offense is not only executing and making shots and getting good shots, but it's just flat out getting shots up on the rim, you know, because they do such a great job of turning you over.
A victory for Ohio tonight would put their MAC record at 2-2. It would also drop Kent State to 2-2, so it would put them in a second-place tie for the conference. Nick, let's see if Ohio can just knock down some shots tonight, buddy. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Blake. The best-kept Ohio sports secret may be the Ohio swimming and diving team. Last night, the Bobcats picked up their 6th dual-match win of the season against rival Marshall. Ohio sank the Thundering Herd 154-78 in just their 2nd home regular season event. As a team, the Bobcats have won 13 of their last 14 dual meets. They also placed first earlier this season in the Zippy Invitational. The Green and White have only 2 home meets left this season. West Virginia and Marshall will be meeting on the hardwood tonight in the Battle of West Virginia. The Thundering Herd have been on a roll as of late, winning 4 straight, all of which were Conference USA contests. The Mountaineers have 4 conference wins of their own in the always tough Big East. The last time these 2 teams met was 1 year ago, and Marshall came out on top 75-71. The Mountaineers have controlled the rivalry and have won 15 out of the last 20 meetings between the 2. The game will be played at the Charleston Civic Center. On the high school hardwood, the Alexander Spartans are on a 2-game winning streak. The Spartans defeated River Valley 43-32 to pick up their 4th win of the season, doubling their win total on this recent streak. The Spartans' D was on all night, forcing 19 turnovers against the Raiders. Senior Jake Gray provided the offense for Alexander with 18 points, which accounted for nearly half of the team's offensive production. In the TVC Hawking, the South Gallia Rebels are on the heels of the top 2 teams, Southern and Belpre. The Rebels, who currently sit in 3rd, picked up a 73-56 conference victory over the Federal Hawking Lancers last night. Corey Hanner's 28 points led the charge for the Rebels, and he was the game's leading scorer. With the loss, Federal Hawking slips to 4-4 in the conference, but remain in 4th in the standings. Also in action last night in Athens County, where it's Nelsonville and Trimble. The Nelsonville York Buckeyes are 7-5, and 2-2 into CVC Ohio, a record they share with 3 other teams. They fell to the Logan Chieftains 62-48 last night. As for the Trimble Tomcats, they also were on the losing end. Waterford conjured up a 63-46 victory over the Tomcats. Trimble slips to 4-5 in the TVC Hockey with the defeat.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep.
And stay tuned tonight on WOUB.
Here's a look at what's coming up next on your public television station. Their slogan might be "Have it your way," but Burger King might be getting food your way soon. The fast food chain is testing a delivery system in the D.C. area. If the idea catches on, the company may expand delivery to 16 stores, but they have no plans past that.
The idea comes after the chain announced a new packaging that will keep your burger and fries warm while in transport. And so far, the delivery only costs $2.
That's an interesting story. Let's take a look at our final weather.
Of course. All right, well, like I said, for tonight, we're going to have a low of 23 degrees, and that snow is going to be coming our way tonight, so be prepared for that tomorrow. By 9 a.m. tomorrow, the snow is going to be here. We're going to have a beginning the day at 31 degrees. By noon, we're going to be at 37 degrees, so warming up, and eventually by 3 p.m., 39 degrees. The snow still remaining throughout the whole entire day. And as we go into next week, we're going to be seeing clear skies and the temperatures rise. So we'll be going from snow tomorrow to next Tuesday at 55 degrees and sunny. So who would have guessed?
That'll be such a relief.
Yeah, thanks, Colleen. Always keeping us up to date. And that does it for our broadcast on this 18th of January, 2012. Thanks for watching. For Colleen O'Mara, Nick Hurst, and Graylyn Roose, I'm Andrew Fowler.
You can get the latest news and weather on the WOUB radio network. You can view our program anytime online, WOUB.org. Have a great night.